Hey guys, welcome to the August Watch of the Month Club, where we are going to be taking a look at the 10 best chronograph watches under $500. Let's check it out. Welcome back to Just the Watch. My name's Dave, and every month I take a look at the best watches in a given category, and this month we are looking at chronograph watches under $500. Now, this is a list that I put together based on my personal experience with some of the watches. 3 of them I've got here today in hand to show you. And then a lot of them are built from suggestions from you guys. So I'll be asking for your suggestions for next month's Watch of the Month Club in a little bit. And I'll tell you guys about what we'll be looking at next month. But let's go ahead and jump into this month's watches, starting with the ones that I have here. Now, I always like to start looking at some of the kind of more value propositions. So we're going to be looking at what I call the gold tier watch, which has to be under $250. And then we'll be looking at the platinum tier watch, which has to be under $400. And then once we've gotten those two out of the way, we'll go through the rest of the list. Okay, so starting with our gold tier selection, this is a new watch that I just recently purchased. It was one that was heavily recommended in the comments from the last Watch of the Month Club video, and that is the Seagull 1963 chronograph watch. And this particular one that I have is a Panda dial version made by Red Star. All right, so this is a Panda dial version of the Seagull 1963 chronograph. And now, as near as I can tell, there are a whole bunch of different Chinese watch manufacturers that are producing reissues of this watch that are not, this one's not actually made by Seagull, this one's made by Red Star, but the design is based off of the original one, and the movement inside is a Seagull movement. This is a mechanical hand-wound chronograph, so the movement is one of the main reasons that people want this watch, because it's one of the few mechanical chronographs you can get in the sub $500 price range. In fact, this one you can readily find it for under $250, sometimes even under $200 depending on where you look. So if you are interested in getting a mechanical chronograph into your collection, this is probably the cheapest way to go. And I really like this Panda dial version. So this one is a 42mm version with a sapphire crystal. They have these in 38mm with acrylic crystals. You can get the champagne dial, which is the kind of more original one. This Panda dial one is sort of a, they took the same design elements and changed the color scheme. And I really like this one. The strap that it comes on is kind of a standard issue red and black NATO, which is okay, but I think it looks really cool if you strap it over, if you swap it over to like a like a leather rally strap or an aviation strap or something like that. Go ahead and throw it over on my wrist so you can see what it looks like. I have a 7.5-inch wrist, so I think that this slightly larger 42mm one wears really well for me. 38 might have been a little bit on the small side, but it's cool to have that option. I'm going to be doing a full review of this watch, and there are definitely some interesting features of this movement that I want to show you guys in the full review, but we don't have time for all that today. Suffice to say, I think if you are looking for a chronograph watch in the $250 price range, this is definitely one to check out, particularly if you are interested in a mechanical chronograph watch. Okay, moving on to our platinum tier watch of the month. This is one that I've had in my collection for a while. This is my favorite chronograph under $500. You can get it for right around $400 right now, and that is the Bulova Lunar Pilot. Okay, so Bulova Moonwatch, Lunar Pilot, again, probably my favorite chronograph under $500. The finishing and the detail on this watch is just phenomenal. It has Bulova's high frequency, 262 kilohertz, high frequency quartz movement in it, super accurate, rated to be 10 seconds plus or minus 10 seconds a year on the accuracy. You can see it measures tenths of a second over on this side during the first 30 seconds, and it's going to stop. Lots of depth and detail to the dial as well. Now, the history and heritage behind this watch is really cool. This is modeled after a Bulova prototype watch that was actually worn on a moon mission. To my knowledge, this is the only non-Speedmaster that was worn on the moon. The story goes that David Scott's NASA-issued Omega Speedmaster actually broke during the mission, and he had this Bulova prototype with him as his personal watch. And so when he did his moon activities, he wore this Bulova watch instead. And thus Bulova was able to claim some of that Moonwatch heritage with this one. The main problem that people have with this watch is the size. It's 45 millimeters diameter and I believe about 53 millimeters lug to lug, and it's very flat too. It doesn't curve much to the wrist, so it wears very large. So if you have a medium or small wrist, this might be too large for you. On my 7.5-inch wrist, I find it wears pretty well. But if you can pull it off, it is a super cool watch, and I think it's well worth the $400 price that you can pick it up for now. I do have a full review of this watch done, so if you're interested in learning more, make sure you check that one out. Now I have one more watch in hand to show you. This is the Hemel HFT20 series. This is one of my favorite chronograph watches in this price range, and this one was provided by Hemel for review purposes. All right, this is the Hemel HFT20 series. This is a pilot's chronograph style watch, and this one is available in an option with a 12-hour bezel, as you can see here, which is really cool for tracking a second time zone. This one has a Seiko Mecha Quartz movement inside, which you're going to see a lot of that on this list going forward today. What a Mecha Quartz movement is it's a combination of a mechanical chronograph module and then a quartz movement that powers the main timing functions. But when you activate the chronograph, there's actual gears and things inside it, and you can kind of feel that in the starting and stopping, and particularly when you reset it. Watch the hand fly back there. You get that instant flyback, which is usually common to mechanical watches, to mechanical chronographs, and not quartz chronographs. So many of the watches on this list use that same technology, which is pretty cool. The build quality and design on this watch is just fantastic. I really love everything about it. And it is one of my favorite chronographs under $500. It is a bit on the pricey side. This is on the upper end of what you're going to pay for a quartz chronograph, Mecha Quartz movement. It comes in at $450. So there's a lot of similarly spec'd watches for significantly less than this one on the list going forward if you are unwilling to pay that much for this one. But I do think you are getting your money's worth even at that $450 price range. I have a full review of this watch as well. And again, this one was provided by Hemel for review purposes. All right, so moving on, we're going to go ahead and jump through the rest of the list, going from the least expensive to the most expensive. But before I do, I'm going to let you guys know what next month's Watch of the Month category is going to be, so that you can help me, pick the best watches in the category to showcase next month. Next month in September, we're going to be looking at field watches. So comment down below. Let me know what your favorite field watch is under $500, and particularly if you know of any around the $250 price range and the $400 price range, give me those ones so that I can check those out to consider them for the gold or platinum recommendations, but that would be a big help for me. I actually got a lot of great recommendations for the chronograph video this month, a lot of watches that I'd never heard of, and because of that, I'm actually going to make a second follow-up video to this, going over kind of the 5 most underappreciated chronograph watches under $500, and we'll go through the ones that are watches that I thought were really cool that I had never heard of, so yeah, look forward to that video coming up next. If you haven't already subscribed, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you can be notified when those videos come out. But with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump through the rest of the list, starting from the least expensive, moving on to the most expensive. Coming in at number 4 on the list, we have the Dan Henry 1963 chronograph. Now this is like probably my favorite Dan Henry. I haven't actually gotten any Dan Henrys before, but a lot of people recommended this one down in the comments last month. And this is, again, my favorite Dan Henry. It's kind of similar to the Hemel that we just looked at. You can get it with a 12-hour bezel, which again is one of my favorite ones. But again, it's only $240, so it's a pretty good value. It's very similarly spec'd to the Hemel as well, and the design is also fairly similar. They're both Pilot's chronographs. They both have that 12-hour bezel. They're both Seiko Mecha Quartz. The Dan Henry only has a mineral crystal. It is sapphire coated, so it'll give you some extra scratch resistance, but it's not going to be as scratch resistant as a full sapphire crystal, and it only has 50 meters of water resistance, but it's got a really cool, clean, kind of 1960s style look, harkening back to the kind of golden age of aviation, when pilots were sort of really in their element and one of the coolest guys around, and I think this watch kind of really fits with that characteristic. So this is, again, probably my favorite Dan Henry, but yeah, definitely recommend that one. Okay, moving over to number 5, we're going to take a look at the Orient Neo 70s Panda Dial. You can pick this one up on Amazon US for about $280. Depending on where you're looking, you can probably find it for around there, maybe a little bit cheaper in some places as well. This is just a really cool kind of 1970s vintage style Panda chronograph from Orient. It's a 42 millimeter diameter watch that is solar powered and has 100 meters of water resistance. I believe it only has a mineral crystal as well, but at this price range, I think that's acceptable. But really that kind of vintage Panda dial look is kind of the main draw, I think, of this. And then you pair that up with Orient's typical high build quality and great quality standards. This is a watch that was made for the JDM market, so it is manufactured in Japan and just looks really cool as well. Now, this Orient Neo 70s Panda was one that was popular in the comments. Both Michael Moffat and Alex Huen both recommended it, so thank you guys for helping me out, pointing me to that one. Great pick there. Okay, moving over to number 6, we're going to take a look at the Citizen World Chronograph, atomic time. This is AT8110-53E. This is a little bit larger watch. It's 43 millimeters in diameter, but this one is kind of a more dressy look. It is on the big side, but it's got this kind of, good blend of sort of sportiness and dressiness. I think it's something that would be pretty versatile for you. It's a great traveler's watch. This one, in addition to being an eco-drive chronograph, it also has sapphire. It also has a really cool world time function as well, so you can easily switch between different time zones. And on top of all that, it is also atomic time. So it'll sync with the radio towers to always update the time automatically. So a lot of great features packed into this. You're also getting sapphire crystal, 100 meters of water resistance. So spec-wise, I think this is one of the best kind of chronograph watches that you can get in this, sort of under $500 price range. And it's one that I hadn't really heard of too much, but it's got a really cool look to it. All right, number 7 on the list, another kind of fan favorite. This is the Yema Rallygraph. And so Yema, they make mechanical chronographs, but they also make quartz ones. The quartz ones you can get for pretty reasonably priced. And this is one that was recommended by Gilles Dilo Square, CM Antiporta, and Yang Mengchun. So Yema is kind of experiencing a little bit of a resurgence right now. They're kind of really hot this summer, and everybody's interested in checking out their watches. So I thought it'd be cool to feature one of their quartz chronograph watches, because they're more known for their Superman Diver, which is kind of their main bread and butter watch. But they also make some really cool kind of vintage racing style chronographs. I really love the square subdials on this. I also like that this one comes in at a 39 millimeter case diameter. So most chronograph watches tend to be on the larger side. This one's a little bit on the smaller side. So if you have smaller wrists, this might be a good one to look at. And again, it's a mecha quartz chronograph, 100 meters of water resistance. The only thing that I would have liked to have seen upgrade is maybe having a sapphire crystal. This one does only have a mineral crystal on it. Moving on to number 8 on our list, we have the Tissot V8, which is an automatic chronograph watch. It has a Swiss automatic chronograph movement inside of it. The only watch on this list that you're going to find that has an automatic movement, much less a Swiss automatic movement inside of it. So typically for automatic movements on chronographs, you're looking at like $800 and up. It's hard to find, usually over $1,000. So this is really interesting to see one down in this price range. Apparently this is a movement that Tissot kind of specifically asked Edda to kind of work on to create a sort of a lower cost, mass-produced automatic chronograph movement. But it is still a Swiss automatic chronograph movement that you can get for $350. So pretty insane price there. On top of that, you are getting great specs. It's 100 meters of water resistance and a sapphire crystal, and it's a Tissot, so good heritage, good build quality. Just all around, I think a really great bang for your buck watch, particularly if you're interested in an automatic chronograph movement. The design seems a little bit bland to me, like they're kind of trying to go for this sort of vintage racing style look, but it just kind of sits in the middle a little bit. Doesn't really pop with me, but I think for the specs, this one's definitely worth it for the money, and if the design really does speak to you, if you do like the way it looks, this looks like a great place to go. Okay, moving on to number 9 on our list, we're going to look at the Brew Mastergraph, which you can pick up for $375. Now, Brew is another one of those micro brands that's kind of pretty hot right now. A lot of people are, checking out their watches. And the Retrograph, I believe, is their more popular one. That one was recommended by a number of people, but it's currently all sold out. And one of the requirements to be on this list is the watch has to be readily available at the time of the list. But I checked out Brew's website. They do have the Mastergraph, which you can pick up again for $375. Also a very cool chronograph watch, and definitely want to show you guys this one. So this is another one that's on the smaller side. It's kind of got this cool square case, but it's only 38 millimeters across. So again, probably going to wear better for people with smaller wrists if you're looking for something like that. And the overall design kind of strikes me as this sort of Bauhaus-inspired look. It's definitely a unique look, not something you see very often, again, particularly in this price range. It has a sapphire crystal, 150 meters of water resistance, and a Seiko Mecha Quartz movement inside of it. Okay, moving on to our final watch on the list, number 10, we're going to be looking at the Seiko Prospex SSC701. Now this is Seiko's solar-powered dive chronograph. Now they make a bunch of different models of this one, and this particular one was recommended by Todd Weishaus. This is the Save the Ocean model, and it is kind of hard to find right now. So there was some sellers on Amazon that had it for around $450. However, if you can't find that particular one, I'll link to a couple of other ones that are basically the same watch, just in different colorways and styles. There's a Patty version. There's one of a kind of an older one that's sort of a Pepsi dial version that you can pick up, all in this sort of between $350 $450 price range. So the cool thing about this one, this is the only watch on the list that is dive certified, ISO certified 200 meter diver. So this is one that is ready for professional diving activity, if that is your thing. If you're really into scuba diving and you want a chronograph watch, this has a solar-powered Seiko chronograph movement inside of it, so really cool there. Just really tough, ready to handle anything kind of dive watch from Seiko. Only downside of this watch, I think, is the crystal. It is a hardlex crystal, so not sapphire, so it is going to be prone to scratching, but that is very typical of Seiko in this price range. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up the list for this month. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and keep an eye out for the follow-up videos. We'll be looking at the sort of five unusual chronograph watches that didn't make this list, but I do want to show you guys, so keep an eye out for that video coming up next. And drop me a comment down below letting me know what your favorite field watch is under $500, so I can consider that for next month's list. And also let me know what you thought of this list. What was your favorite chronograph on the list? What are some of the ones that I missed? Because there are always watches that I missed. I'm only picking 10 here, and there's, you know, I'm always missing people's favorites. So, you know, shout out your favorite one down below. Let people know if there's one that should have been on this list, and if a lot of people are voting for it, hopefully it'll float to the top in the comments. And as you look through not only this list, make sure you check the comments down below for more suggestions. I really like that this has kind of become a real community-driven list, and it's not just my personal preferences, but it's being able to incorporate a lot of what you guys think. So definitely appreciate your guys' help, and we will see you guys next month for the Field Watches Watch of the Month. Talk to you later. Bye.